What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the College Sports Connection podcast, where Double A, Alex, and AJ host the Mid-American Conference Best.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the CSC podcast, all action, all the time. I'm your host, Alex Captain. Joining me, as always, it's AJ, the Guru.
What's going on, everybody?
AJ, welcome back. We had a great week 1. A lot of ups, downs, sideways, a little bit of everything here in this first week. We won't really do too much breakdown this week, but, we really have a couple of things we want to kind of go over, including our top plays of the week. We're handing out our helmet stickers. And we're going to pick this week's game of the week. And I think we both have a little bit of a different opinion on what that might be. So I'm looking forward to diving into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it.
So let's just go back and, let's just touch base on the top plays of the week. I mean, last week we had a lot of really, really exceptional playmakers, making plays, if you will. So what's, I guess, tell me what your kind of play of the week that stood out to you was this week.
Yeah, I think for me, it's Rocky Lombardi on the quarterback sneak to win the game at Boston College. It's from the 1 yard line. If you caught that game, NIU was up 21-0 at one point.
The 21-7.
21-7, and they allowed BC to come right back into it right before the end of the fourth quarter, tied it up to 21. And Rocky Lombardi, our 6th, 7th, 10th year guy, whatever he is at this point, statistically it wasn't phenomenal. Didn't throw things off the charts. He was able to sneak it in for that 1 yard TD at the end of that game, which really was the big. I'm not gonna say it's an upset because we had predicted it, but in the grand scheme of people who don't follow the Mid-American Conference, it was an upset.
Mm-hmm.
But it's another one of those games that Coach Hammock, who did it at Georgia Tech, was 2 years ago, down in Atlanta. He went down there and won that. Now he goes up to Boston and wins this one against BC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that was a great play, like you said, right at the end of the game in overtime to really win that one. I mean, that was a huge moment for NIU, a program who last year went 3-9. Obviously, lost Rocky, didn't have Ontario Brown. Just a lot of things went wrong for the Huskies, and I mean, all credit to them. They came out and they won that game. A gutsy win. You and I talked about it last week about. It's hard to get up at noon in Boston for anything that's not New England Patriots football. So that, big hats off to them for that. But yeah, I think that was an excellent play. I'm turning my attention to Eastern Michigan. They had a lot of special teams play. But the one in particular that I want to look at was Jalen Jackson. And he had a punt return. It was a kickoff by how it was recorded statistically, but it was the free kick punt after the 2-point safety. Eastern Michigan got a safety right in the first quarter to go up 9-0, and then Jalen Jackson blistered this thing through the defense. And people can say what they want about the opponent, Howard, whatever. I don't care who you are. It's so hard to return a kickoff, a punt, whatever, against anybody. I mean, you're still got to get through 11 guys, 11 bodies. And the way he cut and moved, he took it up the home sideline, going right to left. He took it up the home sideline, kind of did a little bit of a U-dip cut back across in front of the kicker, takes it home for the score. And just an excellent play, excellent awareness. Got a chance to kind of talk to him about that in the post-game press conference, and asked him when he knew it was going to be 6. And he just talked about the idea that he was just ready for it and just knew that without the guys blocking for him, it wasn't going to be 6 no matter what. So he gave a lot of credit to his front men, and just an unbelievable, excellent play by Jalen Jackson. Then of course in the second quarter, Hamzi El Zayat had a kickoff return So it's just, a lot of great special teams play for the Eagles in their home and season opener. That one I believe was like 96 yards for the
Something like that.
kickoff.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think for me it's Jalen Jackson, just because he literally scooped, turned, and burned, and
Mhm.
it was a beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful play.
absolutely.
Um, so those are those are our two plays of the week. I really love what those guys did for those plays. Helmet stickers, yeah, I don't care who you give it to. It could be offensive, defensive, special teams. Who's the player that stuck out to you the most this weekend?
Yeah, for me, it's C. Bangura out of Ohio. I could you kind of look at their, Parker Navarro and C.J. Harris both played a quarterback and combined threw for 104 yards,
Mm-hmm.
uh, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. C. Bangura carried the ball 19 times for 107 yards, averaging 5.6. He outran what both quarterbacks did throwing the ball, which was interesting too. Obviously, we were kind of, it's Long Island. We had a feeling that Curtis Rourke wouldn't play for the simple fact that it was Long Island and CJ and Parker could get the job done,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll save a Rourke for this week against FIU, I believe, right? And
Yeah.
so this will be an opportunity for them to
Florida
get healthy.
Atlantic.
North Atlantic, one of those
Yeah.
Florida
Yeah.
random Florida schools. Yeah, there's like 10 of them. But yeah, I'm going with Steve Bangora just because, like I said, he had 19 carries, 107 yards rushing. He also had 2 receptions for 2 yards. He One was a negative, so kind of negated a couple of yards there. But yeah, I'm going with C on this one.
All right. I can respect that. I mean, he had an excellent game. He, people can say what they want about the opponent, but still it's rushing yards. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Tackling, still
And
tackling.
yeah, exactly. It's trying to run over a 200-pound human being is still trying to run over a 200-pound human being.
Absolutely.
For me, and I'm gonna kind of do a kind of a unique one. I'm going to give a lot of credit, and I'm going to give a helmet sticker to all 5 guys on the Toledo offensive line. Illinois came in as a highly touted top 5, I believe, defensive line.
Yeah.
Toledo gave up 1 sack, and it was an intentional grounding sack. It wasn't even a real sack.
That's right.
It was a couple tackles for losses, if you will. I think it was a total of 5 for Illinois.
Was that the intentional grounding where he was on the far left, he threw it far right
Yeah.
towards the end of the game? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. A total of 5 tackles for losses by the Illini defense. Comparatively, Toledo had 4 tackles for losses.
Mm-hmm.
So and I don't like to give out helmet stickers to more than just one player, but I think, the Toledo offensive line deserved it, especially after they were a much of a patchwork offensive line a year ago. And for them to come in and hold their own the way they did against a very stout Illini defensive line, my hat is off to the Toledo Rockets offensive line.
Sure. Yeah, they looked really good. I think, we won't get too much in depth into it, but I mean, they looked great the entire game. And you and I have talked off air via text and how, that's really going to be the core for Toledo going forward this year in order to get back to Detroit because their schedule is favorable. It all starts with the line.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But and that was, overall that was a great game. Like you said, we won't dive too much into it. Looking forward to this week. We've got a fun slate of games coming up. A couple games I'm really excited about. The one game in particular that I'll actually be at will be Fordham at Buffalo. Looks like a lot of MAC teams. Actually, about half are going to be at home this week. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are at home. Yeah, so we got half at home, half are on the road. Which one are you kind of have your eye on? Which one is a potential upset bid? What are you looking at? What's the game of the week for you?
Yeah, you kind of look down here. You obviously kind of just to rattle them off here. Ball State's at Georgia, New Hampshire's at Central Michigan, Eastern Illinois is at Bowling Green, Western Michigan's at Syracuse, Miami of Ohio at Massachusetts, Southern Illinois at Northern Illinois, Texas Southern at Toledo, Kent State at Arkansas, Ohio at Florida Atlantic, and Morgan State at Akron. Mentioned Florida at Buffalo, then Eastern at Minnesota. That one's intriguing because Minnesota's 20.5 point favorites, but Eastern plays really well.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, The game I'm going to keep my eye on, the game that's potential upset, in my opinion, is Western at Syracuse.
Okay.
Syracuse is given 23.5 points, but for some reason, I'm going to be on this Western train this year. I had showed you the text message I had with my former coach Kirshner, who we've had on the show and who's a former captain at Western, and he really likes what Lance Taylor has going on. He says it reminds him a lot of the hype that PJ Fleck had, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of energy around the program, the surrounding areas, how the media is going into it. It's very similar to PJ Fleck, and we obviously saw what PJ Fleck did at Western. But I
Mm-hmm.
think, as long as Western stays stable at quarterback this week, I think they can really go up to Syracuse and pull a win off.
Okay. So that one's that should be a good game. I know you talked about Western being major dogs in that one. So that'll definitely be a good game. Looking forward to watching that one. Man, this is the one that I find intriguing. And it's not because I think it's going to be a good game, but I find it interesting how the line has shifted. We've got UMass hosting Miami, Ohio.
I was looking at that one too.
Miami's only a 7-point favorite in this game.
The Don Brown defense.
Yeah, UMass is, they're 1-1 coming into this game. They had that season opening win against New Mexico State. Then they lost at Auburn on this past weekend. But I don't know, man. Like, UMass looks pretty good on offense. They look to be playing some solid defense. I mean, looking at it comparatively, they've given up 481 yards on defense, and they've played 2 games. Miami, Ohio gave up almost 500.
Yeah.
In one game. So, it'll be interesting. You talk about Don Brown defense. I think that'll be exciting to see what Don Brown does. I think fully that Miami wins this game, but it's the fact that they're only a 7-point favorite in this matchup really, really draws my eye to it.
There's that one, and then Ohio FAU. FAU's only favored by 5, which I think that's going to be intriguing as well, depending on who plays quarterback. I think that's why that line is the way it is, because they don't know who's going to exactly be playing quarterback, which 3 of the guys it's going to be. But yeah, I mean, obviously we kind of figured Georgia's their 42-point favorites. I mentioned Syracuse 23.5, Miami of Ohio 7, Arkansas 38 over Kent State. And then what else? What other line down here? Eastern at Minnesota 20.5. Those are the lines that are on ESPN's site right now. I'm sure those will change here or be updated as we get closer here. It is only Tuesday. But yeah, there's some interesting games. I think the MAC's going to come away with a lot of wins here this week. I think Central will beat New Hampshire. BG will beat Illinois State, or Eastern Illinois, excuse me. Northern Illinois will beat Southern Illinois. Toledo will beat Texas Southern. Buffalo should beat Fordham. We saw what Fordham in Ohio did a couple of years ago. It was last year, actually. Over 100 points scored in that game. I think went even in overtime also. And then Akron should get that first win this week against Morgan State. That's a team that was really kind of surprising last week against Temple, losing 24-21. Really, that was a game Akron would have pulled off, but they obviously didn't. Lost by 3. They had a chance to regroup here and play Morgan State before they travel down to Lexington and play the Wildcats down at Kentucky.
Yeah, they got shut out in the second half of that game, which, obviously you don't win many ball games getting shut out in the second half, but they looked pretty good on offense in the first half. So yeah, it'll be good for Akron to kind of get this together. I'm my hot take of Akron going 6-6 or better. After that opening weekend, I'm a little bit more confident in that take now. But yeah, no, Akron looks really good. Really looking forward to this slate of games this weekend. Like I said, I'll be at Buffalo at hosting Fordham. That'll be a great game. That'll be over there on ESPN Plus. That's a 6:00 p.m. kickoff. Got a couple things going on in the mailbag here from our friends over at Walk On Red Shirts. How can EMU keep it close against Minnesota? Now I'm gonna look at this a little bit more because, and I wrote about this in my post game recap. I'll be honest, I don't know if it was that I overall wasn't impressed with Eastern Michigan, or if Howard just really came to play. Eastern Michigan went 38 game minutes without scoring an offensive touchdown. Everyone's talk about, oh yeah, they had the special teams touchdowns to make up for it. And that's great. Those special teams touchdowns are a lot harder to get against Minnesota.
Sure.
You've got to be able to move the ball. I mean, Samson Evans was held to less than 60 rushing yards. Yeah. You're not going to win many games when your star running back can't move the ball.
No, and Minnesota's coming off a huge win against Nebraska too, a walk-off field goal. I think for Eastern, it's going to be establish the run game. Austin Smith was 19 of 28 for 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Obviously you're not gonna be able to turn the ball over against Minnesota. Minnesota's they're, for being in the Big Ten West, they're pretty good. Like, that was a good Big Ten West game we saw the other day against Nebraska. But I think really Samson Evans is really going to have to get it going. 52 yards. He only averaged 3.3 yards a carry with 1 touchdown. His longest was 16. Mm-hmm. That's not going to do it against the Minnesota defense, the PJ Fleck defense.
Right.
So I really think as long as they can establish the run and keep the clock in their favor. You talked about the 32 minutes of not scoring offensive touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna, like we talked about, that's not gonna work. So really, I think they can control the game on the ground. But also, I mean, he threw. You look at the numbers here. Heath Smith threw to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different receivers.
Yep.
He did a great job of spreading the ball around, but also only completed 19 of those 28 passes for 175 yards. So I think if they can establish a ground game and limit the turnovers to 0, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, I think the turnovers are going to be key. But really establishing a run game, because then it takes a lot of pressure off of your quarterback, and that's what you want. You don't want your quarterback to be under duress the whole time, because if he's under duress, you can write this up as a loss for the Eagles early. I think, I don't know. I think defense is going to have to play a much better second half than they did against Fordham, or than they did against Howard. And if they can do that, there's a chance that they can go up to Minnesota and win this game. Now, Minnesota has not looked stellar. I'm not going to say that they're definitely, this juggernaut. But I also think that Eastern Michigan has their hands full with a quality opponent who is also 1-0, who played a much tougher opponent in week 1 than Eastern Michigan did. They only won by 3. But I think that this is going to be a game that if Eastern Michigan can't do what they're good at, Minnesota wins this game.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Minnesota only had 55 yards on the ground last week. Former Western Michigan running back Sean Tyler, he led it with 10 carries and 41 yards. And then you go down to the receiving, former Kent State guy, Corey Crooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for 7 receptions for 63 yards. Minnesota doesn't have much of a run game, it looks like. So, but he did throw for just under 200 yards. So as long as they can keep the ball in front of them, keep the guys in front of them, I think they'll be all right.
Well, and I think, people talk about looking at old teams you played against or whatever. Sean Tyler knows exactly how Eastern Michigan plays football. He's got an opportunity to come out and kind of make a statement. I mean, the previous 2 years, he had over 1,000 yards rushing each year, combined for 16 touchdowns. In 21 and 22, at least on the ground, he had a couple more through the air. I don't see this to be a thing where it's, it's Eastern Michigan revenge. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a really good day. Eastern Michigan really struggled last week against the run. And Minnesota watched that film. You look at Eastern Michigan, they gave up 100 yards to Eden James, I believe was his name. Yeah, Eden James. They gave up 96 yards to Eden James. And I'm just looking at this box score here from the game this weekend. They gave up 96 yards to Eden James, 67 to the backup Ian Wheeler, 47 to the third string Casey Hawthorne and Tutty. They gave up 204 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
Eastern Michigan got outplayed on offense, in a very, very big way. You gotta be able to stop the ground game. You stop the ground game, a lot easier to defend the air.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean that's gonna do it for us this week, guys. It's nothing crazy, just trying to keep it moving for college football. We the big thing that you'll always hear from us is, we're going to be as positive as we can about this conference. And I don't know, just it's okay to say, hey, that MAC team played really well. It doesn't always have to be, man, Illinois looked bad, man, Boston College looked bad. No, the MAC team looked really good, which is why they looked bad.
And
So,
they have looked good here,
give your MAC schools some credit too. That's I saw it all the whole time this weekend, people saying, oh, well, you barely slipped past Toledo. Toledo won the MAC last year. Toledo's returning 16 starters on both sides of the ball who they came out, they played really good football. They understood what they had to do.
Yeah.
Northern Illinois, same thing. I mean, you get Rocky Lombardi back, who he's a game changer, especially for the Huskies. So give these schools some credit. These are veteran teams with great players who many of them will probably be playing on Sundays. So
sure. And
respect it.
It was interesting too. Brent Bielema pregame, he mentioned the coaching job of Coach Candle and how good Toledo really is. He goes, there's some playmakers who kept him up at night for Toledo, and we saw that on Saturday, and you saw it live.
DeQuan Finn had 230 passing yards and 2 touchdowns against a really good Illini defense.
Absolutely. And so yeah, this week we got a lot of fun stuff going on. You're heading to the Buffalo game. I am heading to Bowling Green, Colorado State volleyball on Thursday up in Fort Collins, which will be a lot of fun. Going out with Coach Tomich. I haven't met her yet, so and you're good friends with her. I have not met her yet, so that'll be fun. Go up there and hang out a little bit. Fort Collins is a really cool city, really cool campus. I was up there for a basketball game last year, women's basketball with Colorado State and Western. But yeah, really excited about that. My first volleyball game coverage, so this should be interesting. And yeah, I think I saw on Twitter, BG went wheels up today, didn't they? Head their way out here.
Yeah, I believe I saw that they were on the road and or in the air rather, and heading that way. So should be a good time. Looking forward to it, and glad you'll get to meet Coach Tomich. But yeah, man, I think that's about it for me this week.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll be pushing out a new beta update this next week. Got a little something in the works off of your guys' feedback. So big shout out to you guys, my beta testers on Apple, for sending in some ideas saying, hey, what if we tried this? What if we tried this? I've been toying with it, looking at the code, making some updates, and hoping that you guys will really like what I put out this week for the app, getting closer to actually having that ready for full launch. And I'm excited to keep making tweaks. I got a chance to talk to the Eastern Michigan band director, and he and I had a great discussion. He made a suggestion that to me makes total sense. I'm going to see if I can implement that this week and get that out to you guys.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Go check us out on our website, www.thecscpodcast.com. Find us on Twitter at College Sport Pod. You can find us over on Instagram at the CSC Podcast. Please subscribe, like, review, whatever the show on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, wherever podcasts are, that's where we're at. So please go subscribe, like, support. We definitely appreciate it. And you guys are the best. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you next week.
See you.